Hello and welcome to Elements of Costing Part 2, so Part 2 of this three-part series, and in this one we're going to do overhead absorption, so the absorption of overheads. We'll do stock calculations, so the different methods of value in stock, or inventory, whatever you want to call it, two words for the same thing, and the manufacturing account layout. So let's get on with this then. So absorption of overheads. So let's say if we just had the direct cost of our product. So we're making a chair, and we've got some wood, and we've got some person making the chair. Let's say it's a woman in this case. This woman's sort of making the chair. The hours that she takes, and she takes 2 hours per the chair that's made. So we've got this. The direct cost there would be the wood cost and 2 hours worth of labour. So if managers were just looking at that as the direct cost of our cost, and they were charging prices on the basis of that. This building might have to actually produce this chair. Really, there might have been a big factory with a lot of rent and rates, and there might have been a HR department to employ the person, and there's some finance department to do all the invoices and what have you, and there's some energy costs going in there, and there's a whole series of marketing and what have you to get it sold and what have you. And there's a lot of overheads that are there, and we might not really sort of be factoring that into the price. So if we only looked at direct costs and we use that as our sort of gauge or an idea of a price, then the sales force might actually be undercharging if we don't have this good idea about how much of the overheads per unit or that we produced. And then also as well, if we don't then fix our fixed costs, as we don't cover them as we're going along, then we're going to go bankrupt, really. So we want to sort of consider that in terms of what price we're going to sell. So it'd be a good idea to understand how much overheads are there per unit of this thing that we're producing. Then the other thing is let's say that we are in a manufacturing company and we're making something, and the amount of direct costs actually might be quite low. The materials cost might be quite low in comparison to the value of the product at the end. If we're making a car, the assembly line is probably incredibly expensive. The machine, the indirect costs are probably incredibly expensive. The actual cost to make the car in terms of the actual metal and a person rather than the robot making the cars will be quite low, really. So the value of our stock at the end of the year, our inventory at the end of the year, might be really low if we're just looking at indirect costs. And so we might understate really the value of these cars that we produced but we haven't sold yet. So again, we want to sort of know what are the overheads per unit of production, really, so then we can add it into the stock figure as well. So we've got two things going on here. One, in terms of it's driving our prices and what we're thinking we're going to have to sell for. It's useful to know that. And secondly, the value of our closing inventory, our closing stock. So what we're going to have then is we're going to have an objective with this part in mind, that we're going to take our overheads and we're going to absorb them into the units produced. That's what overhead absorption is. We're taking these overheads and we're sort of absorbing them into the cost of the units. I'm putting them alongside the direct costs, really, to see what the price is or the cost is for this unit of production there, and then we can start to consider how much we're going to sell it for. And so what you're going to see here is there's no set requirement. So there's nothing in particular. There's nothing that's saying you must do it in this particular way. There's going to be options. And as I sort of said with elements of costing, management accounting, this is very internal to the business. It depends what it decides is the most appropriate thing, what it wants to do, really. And so it's not going to be something that's very specific and you must do it this way. What there's going to be is options. So there's three, but you're typically going to see three options, really. You're going to see it on the basis of absorbing overheads, on the basis of labour, the time of labour. So the staff member's time that actually is used on creating this product. Alternatively, the production time or machine time, so the time of the workshop, the actual time that this product is to be made. So there might be more than one person in this, so you might have, let's say, 2 hours of labour time and 1 hour of machine time, or 1.5 hours of labour time and 45 minutes of machine time. So, or the other way around. So this sort of this thing, which is how long does it sit on our machine, or how long does it sit in our workshop, the time that it takes to go through, really. And then the last one is just straight up units. The amount of units produced. We've got so many overheads. We've got so many units. We're just going to divide one by the other. So we've got this as the sort of type of thing. And here, then read the question. Really, this is a really very important point, to read the question, as in with all of this elements of costing in particular. But it could be anything. It could be the number of staff with red socks, could be the hair colour, the number of blonde people in one department, the number of black-haired people in another department. It could be anything really in there. It could be anything, but it's typically going to be these three types as the sort of the sensible types. But read the question in here. Other units within AAT, I think you'll see in some of the ones where I always start to read the first line of the question and start to tell you exactly what the answer is going to be before we even read it. You can't do that in Elements of Costing. You very much have to read the question and see what it is that they're going to say. But how do we go about it? Well, let's say we got an amount of overheads, so in this instance £800,000. And what would be the rates of absorption? That's what you're going to see. What is the rate of absorption? How much of these overheads should go against each unit, let's say? Or what when we go against each unit, how much is going to be based on it per hour? So per labour hour, per machine hour, or per unit in there. So we're going to have labour hours, let's say 40,000 labour hours, production hours, say 50,000, and units, say 80,000 in here. So step one, what you do is you look at the options that they've given you, and you set up some columns in here in the table. So we've got labour, production, and there. So they're going to be our heading columns in here. That's what we're going to do in the first one. And then what we're going to do then is we're going to, once we put that, we're going to put our overheads against each column. So here we have our column headings here, our overheads go into here. Like that. And then step 3, we put the production hour, the labour hours, and the units in the table like that. So we've got our overheads here, which is the same figure. Then we put the actual labour hours, production hours, and units in here. And then we simply just divide whatever the overheads by each one of those things there. So we get this one here, we divide it. So that gives us our absorption rates, and this is an important thing, if that method was chosen. So if we chose the labour method, it would be £20 per hour of labour. If we chose the production method in this one, it would be £16 per hour. If we chose the unit method, it would be £10 per hour. Now, why would we have these different ones? Well, let's say you and I are different managers in this company, and your department uses a lot of labour, and my department uses a lot of machine time. I'm going to say, let's absorb overheads on the basis of labour, because that HR department is what really costs all this overheads in there, and that means that more overheads are going to go against your product than against mine. And let's say you would then say, well, no, it's all about the assembly line and the energy cost, isn't it, really? So let's absorb on the basis of production hours. So it all goes against me instead. And then somebody else might come along and say, well, let's do it on the basis of units, let's say. So that would be one. It's just a straight up argument between managers. What's the most important thing? And we're just it could be anything. So it's that really. And what is the fair way of going about it really? So that would be the first thing then. And now the second point we're going to have then is, and just go back. So let's just go back to that one. Let's say though that there might be an impact on the stock value at the end of it, and the finance director might want to choose a particular one to maximise stock, let's say. So let's now go into the next bit, which is we're going to have the second part of this question, and that's going to say, right, well, you got this product. It takes so much labour, or it takes so much production hours. It takes so much. How much will be the total cost then, on the basis of those absorption rates that you've calculated? So you're probably going to produce the absorption rates first of all, and then you're going to have to produce this total cost of a unit in there. So for one unit, or let's say more than one unit, it might give you a particular one. Read the question again. Typically going to be how much is it per unit, but it might be like how much is it per 100 units. I don't know. Read the question. So step 1, key one, read the question, very much going to be that. And then what we're going to have is we're going to have something that we've already produced the overhead rates, and then they're going to give us the direct costs. So let's say in this instance 5 kilograms of materials at £10 per kilogram, 2 labour hours at £20 per hour, and the production time takes 1.5 hours. So we've got the labour hours taken, so we would know what if we're going to use that one, the labour hours. We've got some production hours here if we're going to use this as the overhead rate, and a unit is a unit, so that would be where it would be over here. So we're going to do then, we've got our little table we're going to produce, so we've got our columns again for our different absorption rates. Now we're going to put in our direct costs here, so our materials and our labour to create our direct costs. We're going to the different overhead absorption rates, which we have to work out, how long did it take to produce this for the labour one, how long did it take for the production machine tool one, that's going to be that one over here, that's what they've told us, and then this unit is just one unit. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to drop those numbers in. So we've dropped in our direct costs first of all, our material and our labour, and creating our direct costs. So that's the first thing we've done, and that's basically on the basis of reading the question. Then what we do is we're going to look and we're going to put in our overhead absorptions based on if, and this is the point, the if we use, chose out. It's not definitely, it's not for definite. It's not actually what we're going to do. It's if we're going to choose labour. So in this one, it gave us 2 hours of labour time. It gave us 1.5 hours of production time, and it gave us 1 unit is 1 unit. And we've got calculated those absorption rates in the previous part, the first part of the question. And that then will give you your total costs. Produce the table like that. Make sure that you don't try and shortcut and have scrappy little sort of workings all over the place. Produce your tables nice and neatly in there, and this question becomes really easy. It's just to get out of the calculator and have a bit of a type, putting your things in for a bit. You don't if you try to do just sort of little equations and what have you, then you're now starting to think, and it becomes a bit of a mess. Don't do that. Make life easy for yourself. Use a table. Which one's the right rate? There is no right rate. Just remember, this was a trick question. They're just options, so don't get hung up about that at all. They're just options. Just complete the questions like that, and you don't have to discuss why it should be this way at this level. It's just an argument between managers. Don't have any kind of concern. And obviously, in this one, let's say if you've got a lot of labour going in your one, and I've not, then I'm going to say, well, I should go on the base of labour because give all those overheads to you rather than to me, and my department look a lot better than yours. So that's all it is. Right. So that's the first part of this video. Next, we're going to do stock inventory calculations. So let's say we've been buying goods and materials over time. So we've got some dresses. Let's say we sell these dresses, exactly the same dress, by the way, that we sell. Prices though have been changing for this dress as they go over time. First of all, it cost us £10, then it's 11, then it's 12, then it's 13. It's been going up over time. And at the end of the period though, and we've got some of these dresses left over, we don't know how much we bought each one of them for. We just know it's something between £10 and £13 for each of them in there. What should we actually do, and what is the value of the items in our inventory and our stock figure at the end if we've been buying all these things at different prices? And you can't value the thing at a different price than you bought it for. So you can't say, well, we bought 50 at £12 and 50 at £13. We've got 100 left in there though, and let's all value them at the last price, at £13 each, because that would be making a profit on something that you haven't sold yet. That wouldn't be allowed. So what are the values that we're going to apply? So we've got a choice of methods here. You're going to have 3 methods in there. And method number 1 is that the last ones are bought are the ones that are left. So we've been buying these things, have been going along. Let's say we've been buying them in lots of 100 in there, and at the end of it we've got 200 left. It'll be the last 200 that we bought that are the ones that are going to be left, and those are going to be that would be what they'd be valued at, and that would be known as FIFO, first in, first out. Okay, the last ones that you bought are left. And then the second one is going to be that the first ones that you bought are left, so we sell the last ones that we buy first, and that one's going to be last in, first out. And the alternative is it's going to be an average of all the costs, so it doesn't really matter when you bought them in there, though. It's like a big tank or sink or something there. So that's what we're doing. That's going to be average cost. That's called AVCO. Okay, so how do you do this? What's the value of the closing stock, or alternatively of the stock issued, the inventory issued? How do we work that one out? So we're going to have some purchases of inventory, and we're going to have different prices. And so probably in the middle of all these purchases in this question, there's going to be an issue of stock. So we're going to go along, we're going to buy some things in 3 different purchases. Let's say they're going to have an issue of this stock, and then we're going to buy another piece of, and then we're going to have another purchase in there. What's the value of the issue, and what's the value of the stock left over at the end? Okay, so now this is going to be an interesting one. Let your artist sort of side run rampant here. And the easiest way to answer this question, although it looks a little silly, is to draw little trucks. Okay, and you're going to put your stock on the little trucks coming in and out of your warehouse. Okay, so the opening stock, if they say opening stock, or the first purchase is going to go on the first truck. And you're going to put the amount of the items on that truck, and you're going to put their costs on that truck. Then once you've drawn your little trucks, then you're going to have more little trucks going on, until you get to a point where you're going to have some goods going out. Okay, and then you're going to, with that trucks going out, you're going to work out which truck they must have come from in there. So if it's first in, first out, they would have come from the first trucks, and it'll be the last trucks that will be left. If they're last in, first out, the last trucks are going to be the ones that are going to be part of the issue, and the first trucks will be the ones that will be left. So That's what you're going to do. You're just going to sit there and work out what little trucks they're on. That's it. Make sure that you draw out your little trucks and then work out, because what you're going to see in the question is that they're going to cross trucks. So the issue will be part of 2 or 3 trucks. Usually 1.5 trucks worth or 2.5 trucks worth in there. They're not going to nicely fit prettily now down into a specific truck. So they're not going to be like the first truck is going to be the one that's going to be sold and the last truck's going to be the one that's going to be left, because that'd be far too easy. It's going to be all of the first one and half of the second one. If it's first in, first out, it's going to be all of the last one and half of the first one. If it's last in, first out, it'll be something like that. In terms of AVCO, well, it's going to be an average of all those trucks in there, though, and you're going to have the bit that's left over. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to work out which trucks are going to go on, and that's the reason why this method, the truck method, is much more foolproof, because you will have you'll see it much easier in this one. And so, even though I'm a professional accountant and have been doing this for 26 years, really, you're always more than that. Gosh, yes, it's a longer. I still use the truck method when I'm working out inventories. So FIFO is going to be the first trucks that we're going to be ones as part of the issue, and the last trucks will be the part of the inventory left over, and LIFO will be the last trucks that we issued, and AVCO is going to be the average of all of them. So that's how you're going to do. You're going to put your little trucks in there. So what we're going to do, we're going to have this issue, and it's usually in the middle of our trucks coming into the warehouse. So you're going to work out what combinations of those are, okay? And then you're going to add up all the values of the goods on your truck. You can deduct the value of the issue there. And so we've still got this other issue, or sorry, this other truck in that's going to come after this issue. We don't. We're doing the first set of trucks in before the issue, and that's the ones that go into the issue, not anything then after that issue. So that then is going to be a new opening stock figure. So you're going to have the trucks you've had up to the issue, you're going to deduct off the issue, and then that's going to be your new opening stock thing. You're going to put that on another little truck. So that's going to be your new opening stock truck figure. Then you'll have this other little truck that will probably come in there though, and you're going to add those two together, and that'll be your closing stock figure. That's typically going to be how the question's going to go. Make sure you draw out things on your little trucks. It makes life so much easier in this particular question. So although it does look silly, make sure you put your goods on your trucks going in and out of the warehouse, because it becomes then foolproof. You'll see this, and to see the example of this, look through the walkthrough of the question of the practice assessment at the end. You'll see the sort of the truck method in there when I show it there, though, and you'll see how easy it becomes. You don't have to think anymore really on this question. If you try and think, you're going to make it really hard for yourself. Right, so the last bit of this video is the manufacturing account, and here what we got is we collected some financial data. So we've had a collection of financial data as we're going through, and we've had some inventory calculations. So we've had this sort of inventory calculations. We've calculated on the basis of FIFO or LIFO or whatever it is there though. And then we're going to create a report for managers setting out the costs of manufacturing. Okay, so we're going to have a typical manufacturing question, and we're going to have some numbers, and the thing is probably typically going to answer the question is going to say, tell me the direct costs, the manufacturing costs, and the cost of goods sold. And there, so you'll have a whole host of numbers, and tell me these 3 figures that they're going to be. And the first thing you got to remember, here we go, Admiral Akbar comes up, it's a trap. This question is a trap, first of all. If you see a whole host of numbers and just give me the answer of what's the direct cost, what's the manufacturing cost, and what's the direct cost of goods sold in there, the examiner's trying to trap you here. And well, the trap that you've got is that the examiner is trying to make you just jump and just work out a little calculation quickly. Yeah. Not to have a table, not to have some nice workings in there, just quickly sort of add a few figures together, because what you're going to see in there is there'll be a little quirk somewhere within one of the numbers that'll make it not quite right, and then the other ones will be wrong. So make sure that you don't just go and start scribbling out numbers, though that's how people fail this question. So what you do is you recognise the trap. So the examiner asks for just these things in there. It doesn't ask for a table of everything that would be in the report. That would be sort of too simple really. They just ask, give me just 3 figures out of what the table will be. And so instead of producing the full table and making it easy for yourself, you just go and try and calculate these 3 figures with it in a scrappy equation. You get one wrong, probably the first one, and then all the rest of it's wrong as well, and you fail the entire question. Recognise the trap, laugh at the examiner, we're not going to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a table, and we're going to start from the furthest away from the finished goods stock, and we're going to keep going down to the finished goods stock. So let's just see how that works. So we've got our raw material here. And now what I've done here as well, you might see this in the question, but you won't see these little pluses and lesses there. So what it is the way in which the manufacturing goes is it's plus the opening raw material, plus the purchases, less the closing raw material, and that's going to be your direct materials cost, plus the labour, and that's going to be the direct costs, plus the indirect costs. Now there could be anything in here. Now this will be where one of the first traps is going to be. Typically, it's only going to be in the question plus manufacturing overheads to get you to the manufacturing costs. But they might put in, just to be a little bit sneaky occasionally, some indirect costs. So they'll sort of say that this is an indirect cost, so it comes after direct costs, but they won't call it manufacturing overheads, but it is before manufacturing costs. So read the question, create the table. Without the table, typically what would somebody do to get from direct costs to manufacturing costs, but just in the manufacturing overheads. This is hidden somewhere else, sneakily away in there, somewhere tucked all the way to the bottom. You've forgotten that, and then you got this one wrong over here, or this one wrong over here, and that's going to be where the trap is laid for you in the exam. So read through it, create your table, tick them off as you're going along as well. By creating the table, you can tick everything off. So plus the indirect costs, plus the manufacturing overheads equals manufacturing costs, plus the opening work in progress. So now that gets us to the manufacturing cost. Now this here is the manufacturing costs of all items there, but it's forgetting about the idea that there might be some material left on the shop floor. We might have had somebody who's made something. Let's say we're tooling something in a machine or a drill or a lathe or something in there, and it's sort of sitting around. There's been some time worked on this, but it's not a finished product yet. And so you have this thing called work in progress. So this manufacturing cost plus the opening work in progress less the closing work in progress gives you the cost of goods manufactured. So what was actually produced, these little products that came off our warehouse. So this is stuff that came out of our warehouse, or sorry, out of our sort of goods in warehouse in here, plus added, so we create plus some labour to that in there, plus these overheads that gets the manufacturing costs. We've then got this adjustment for our opening and closing work in progress that gets us to our cost of actual finished physical goods that went into our warehouse to store our goods, our actual proper sort of thing. Let's say our chairs that we're producing. We then add on plus the opening finished goods less the closing finished goods gives us the cost of goods sold. That's it there though. Just see the table, go through it, and I put in here the little pluses and the lesses which you won't see anywhere else, which will get it to be and to make sense. But that's how it should look in there. I don't think you'll see the pluses and the minuses in the books either. This is the best way of looking at it. Right, and so that's it then. And then what you do is you just put in the numbers into the table, and out comes the answer, and that's it. You've avoided the trap quite nicely in there, and there's nothing that the examiner can do to you. Make sure you do it that way, and life will be a lot easier. And why do we do it like that? Why is the examiner trying to trap you? Because it doesn't seem fair, that really. It's a definite trap, and it's trying to trick you really. Well, you've got to recognise what accountancy is, and it's structure and organisation. How organised, how neat are you? Will you sort of respond and follow structure what we're telling you? If you don't, if you decide to go and do it your own way, and if you're messy and a bit sloppy, then you're going to fail. And it's designed to make you fail, because that would make you a bit of a loose cannon in an accountancy department. You wouldn't want that. So it's actually designed to make you conform, really. So just do what you're supposed to do, put it in the table, crack on, and we'll be all very happy about things. That's the end of that one. And there though, good luck. There's just one little video, which is a very short one left, and then we'll be done.